When you hear the name Studio 54, what does that do?
I'm ready to have a good time.
It's where you come when you want to skate.
Studio 54, the most famous nightclub of the 70s, was the epicenter of forbidden pleasures and debauchery that were characteristic of the era. However, behind this paradise, there was a horrifying and murky world where absolutely anything was allowed.
It was cool to do coke. And everybody was doing it.
The venue hid dark secrets and scandals involving children, people being abused, and even crimes that claimed a few lives. This perfect world came to an end sooner than everybody expected, marking the end of an era in the most illegal way possible.
And when one of the IRS agents went over to examine them, he found an envelope white powder.
Who were the celebrities attending this club? What kind of secret and dark event took place in there? This is the story of Studio 54, the most illegal and shady nightclub in Hollywood. In 1977, an infamously outrageous nightclub called Studio 54 opened its doors in the streets of Manhattan, New York. The building had been built in 1927 and named Gallo Opera House, serving as a theater. Then, in the 1940s, it housed a radio and television studio for the CBS network. The history of the club began when two college friends and entrepreneurs, Ian Schrager and Steve Rebell, decided they wanted to run a nightclub. At first, their acquaintances thought they were crazy to bet their money on that place, as it was located in a dangerous neighborhood. However, they both decided it would be a bohemian club only for the upper class in town. And this ended up being the best bet of their lives. It was Carmen D'Alessio, a publicist working for designer Valentino, who suggested they should buy the place. She put them in touch with influential people of the time, such as Andy Warhol and Calvin Klein, and mailed 5,000 invitations to a select group of people.
I had my own mailing list. Andy Warhol contributed with his own mailing list for the project, who was a very compact group of gay people.
The venue was a very special place. Steve and Ian renovated it and built a large dance floor, a balcony, and a DJ booth. The design was unique, packed with mirrors, light bars, and vinyl-covered floating platforms. In the middle of the dance floor, they put a drawing that encapsulated the dynamic of the place for years, a moon using illegal substances. The club opened its doors on April 26, 1977, and it was a resounding success. But it was also a total chaos. Although it had a capacity for 2,500 people, nearly 4,000 attended. There were hundreds of people waiting in line to get in, and even celebrities were left outside, despite being invited. This was an event that repeatedly took place every weekend for over 2 years. The attendees at Studio 54 came from every area of the entertainment industry, and ordinary people also attended the event. However, they had to meet taxing requirements that we will explore later.
Executives and artists all going, letting their hair down, shaking their butt, and having a really good time, partying hard.
In addition, iconic celebrities of the time attended those parties, such as Mick Jagger and his wife Bianca, Al Pacino, Michael Jackson, Diana Ross, Salvador Dalí, Donald Trump, Frank Sinatra, Cher, Brooke Shields at just 12 years old, among many others.
When you hear the name Studio 54, what does that do? Does your pulse quicken and your feet start moving?
Yeah, I'm ready to have a good time. It's where you come when you want to escape. It's really escapism.
The club became even more iconic the following night, when Bianca Jagger celebrated her birthday and rode into the dance floor on a white horse. This led to very peculiar eccentricities at future parties.
I remember a big party for Dolly Parton for whatever reason, and Steve went all out for that. They had haystacks and horses and donkeys and mules running through the club.
Although getting access to the party was not expensive, about $7 or $8 per person, inside people wasted large amounts of money. The owners would squander about $40,000 or $50,000 per night to put on outstanding shows for audiences and artists to interact.
You can walk in, it would be like you're in the castle of Louis XIV, or you can walk in and it would be Disneyland.
Things would get so extreme that on its opening day, 30 people waiting in line to get in started sharing a liquor bottle, and shortly after, an unconstrained situation played out that included people having intimate relations on the spot. Studio 54 encapsulated this uncontrolled era and became the epicenter of hedonism in the 70s. The club quickly took over the streets of New York, representing this decadent society that sought a safe space to enjoy themselves freely.
Disco was a haven for, inclusion and acceptance, and that the street wasn't. Out on the street, homophobia existed much more than even today. Transgenders took their lives in their hands walking down the street in New York City. But as soon as they stepped foot into the disco, they were safe.
However, this was just the tip of the iceberg of an endless list of illegal acts and excesses, the likes of which nobody had ever seen. Being accepted into Studio 54 was a symbol of status and exclusivity. Steve Rebel was in charge of choosing who was entitled to attend, but he had certain tendencies. It is said that the founder always chose people at random, those who he considered beautiful, exotic, and those who exuded sensuality. He loved having drag queens at the nightclub and also invited non-famous people as long as they could meet his requirements.
Oh, you're not shaved? There's no way in a million years you're gonna get in. It doesn't matter if you're not shaved. Listen, just go home. That hat, don't ever come here with the hat.
But there were terrible things being allowed inside. Within this world of chaos and excess, children were also allowed to attend. Actress Brooke Shields, at only 12 years old, was objectified as a beauty icon back then, and she was also invited to this club. Actress Drew Barrymore was also dragged in there by her mother Jade when she was just 4 years old.
People were waiting in lines with the most fantastic costumes on, each one trying to outdo the other one so that they could be pointed to. It's like, you, so they could get in.
We have a video that goes over the details of Drew Barrymore's tragic and dark life on our channel. You'll find the link in the description. However, behind their thorough selection of people, there were actually dark and ulterior motives. The owner's goal was to offer their VIP clientele, that is, celebrities, access to aspiring young people, so they could have intimate relations with them without the presence of paparazzi. In fact, there were private rooms for this, located in every basement. Once the doors were closed, everyone was free to do whatever they wanted and everything was allowed.
Behind the loudspeakers, you would open the office, somebody would be doing something inside the office, you would be walking upstairs and you would be stumbling through bodies.
A reporter who managed to sneak into the club said it was common to see male waiters with athletic bodies and wearing no clothes, except for certain parts of the body. Unfortunately, there was more to it. All employees were almost always touched and abused as they became items for exhibition. Of course, all of this was compounded by limitless freedom and illegal substances. Owner Ian hardly ever left his office. On the contrary, Steve would stroll through the club wearing a big coat with his pockets filled with money and illicit substances that he happily handed out to the attendees. The idea of people being sober inside was unlikely.
It was cool to do and everybody was doing it, and it didn't matter how famous you were or what a peon you were, everybody was doing the coke.
Even security guards were in great danger. People in line would get so angry if they weren't let in that they would go so far as to commit crimes. On several occasions, security guards had to defend themselves from punches, throw themselves to the ground because they were being shot. In fact, they once had to stop men trying to crash their cars into the venue. The club also caused controversies quite often, resulting in people meeting terrible fates. Those who didn't fight at the entrance usually tried creative methods to get in. One time, one of those attempts ended in tragedy. Some people brought mountaineering gear and tied themselves up with ropes to jump into the backyard. Many of them fell and hit the pavement. One night, a man tried to sneak in through the air duct. He got stuck and died from lack of oxygen. Nobody imagined that this hedonistic paradise, fitting for the fulfillment of people's forbidden pleasures, would come to an end much sooner than expected. Addiction and debauchery ruined the club's owners and actually brought about their downfall. The first year of Studio 54's opening ended with legal problems that resulted in the owners being arrested. The incident was nothing compared to the illegal things taking place inside, as they had been detained just for selling alcohol without a permit. On this occasion, they were saved from all consequences since a very powerful frequent customer of theirs, Roy Kahn, bailed them out and helped reopen the club. Kahn was a well-known lawyer at the time, representing many shady businessmen and members of the mafia, like Tony Salerno and John Gotti. He was also a close friend and mentor to the future President of the United States, Donald Trump. For years, he taught him how to cheat, lie, and destroy anyone who stood in his way to success. On December 14, 1978, something tragic and life-changing happened to the club that turned the owners' lives upside down forever.
I was up in my office with a girl, and I heard the music stop. Well, I walked downstairs, and Steve was already over there. We were both under arrest.
Internal revenue agents arrived and raided the premises. The club had already been under the authorities' watchful eye, as it was suspected that there was a huge operation taking place there that involved cash larceny and large amounts of illegal drugs.
During the search, Rubel and Schrager entered the premises, Schrager carrying a load of books, accounting journals, put them down on the premises, walked away from them, and when one of the IRS agents went over to examine them, he found an envelope of white powder. In fact, tested positive for cocaine. I authorized Mr. Schrager to be arrested.
The agents confirmed all suspicions and confiscated bags of money in the garage, illegal substances, and various documents and financial records hidden in the club's basement ceilings, thus proving all these accusations. But the cause of their downfall was that they had been evading taxes for over 2 years. They both had stolen $2.5 million and up to 60% of the club's income. Steve and his partner tried to reduce their sentences, claiming that many politicians of the time were just as corrupt, including regular customers of the club. One of them was reportedly the chief of staff of the then president Hamilton Jordan, as he was accused of doing drugs and hiring illegal services at the place.
You saw with your own eyes Hamilton Jordan use cocaine.
Yes.
No question.
No question.
No mistake.
No.
However, none of that worked for them. Although Steve was an important man and had a lot of power, his methods only worked with celebrities, not with politicians. Steve's mistreatment ultimately brought about their downfall later on. Years later, it was revealed that a former employee had informed the police about everything that was illegally stored in the basement due to their discontent. This was crucial in stopping them. Finally, in November 1979, Steve and Ian pleaded guilty to 2 counts of tax evasion. The judge in the case imposed the maximum sentence, 3.5 years in prison and $20,000 in fines. But Rubel and Schrager were not going to leave completely defeated, and they both decided to put on one last show that would stay in everyone's memory forever.
Just before they went to jail, they had a really big bash.
In February 1980, Ian and Steve decided to hold an all-night closing party called The End of Modern Day Gomorrah. This time, they opted for a more intimate gathering of 2,000 people, who were their most loyal customers. Epic celebrities such as Andy Warhol, Sylvester Stallone, Calvin Klein, and Diana Ross and Liza Minnelli delivered amazing performances. Steve Rubel sang Frank Sinatra's song My Way and I Will Survive, and he couldn't help but give one last speech, acting completely out of character, as he cried along with all his attendees. For 33 intense and unrestrained months, Studio 54 was a popular meeting place for celebrities back then, as well as for people aiming to make their way into Hollywood. There is no doubt that it will always be remembered as one of the most iconic clubs in history, but unfortunately, addictions, sexually transmitted diseases, and greed ultimately destroyed this perfect and luxurious escape from reality that so many people loved. What about you? Did you know about the history of Studio 54? Let us know in the comments below.